Hello, and welcome to Beyond the Limb, where we explore physical therapy evidence, expertise, and innovation in limb loss and limb difference care. I'm your host, Will Riddick, and I'm a physical therapist focused on improving care for patients with limb loss and limb difference. In this episode, we are diving into a topic that extends far beyond the clinic walls, connecting our patients to meaningful resources, peer support, and national networks that can support their journey after limb loss. As physical therapists, we play a critical role, not only in physical recovery, but also in helping patients navigate the emotional, social, and practical aspects of life after amputation. Knowing where to direct patients for trusted information, community, and advocacy can make a lasting impact on long term outcomes and quality of life. To help us explore this topic, my guest today is Whitney Doyle, Director of Operations at the Amputee Coalition. Whitney plays a key role in overseeing programs and initiatives that support individuals living with limb loss and limb difference across the country. The Amputee Coalition is a leading national organization dedicated to empowering this community through education, peer support, advocacy, and connection to resources. Their work helps bridge gaps in care and fosters a sense of belonging for individuals navigating life after amputation. Whitney, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Will. It's a pleasure to be here.
To kick us off, can you kind of tell us a little bit about your background, how you kind of came into your position at the MT Coalition?
Absolutely. So I started my, career, my professional journey as a prosthetist. So I went through school to be an orthotist prosthetist. I went into my residency, quickly realized I did not want to be in patient care. The battling the insurance right is just a real pain. And I was finding that as someone who had found a space in the broader disability community and kind of that advocacy space, just seeing people go through time and time and again being told that the prosthesis is going to be the thing for them and then maybe it wasn't, or being told that now they're need to identify differently because they have this artificial device. It I didn't have the words at the time, but it was kind of leaning into that like medical model of like, here's the thing, now you're fixed. And it hurt my heart. So I promptly pivoted from clinical work. I'm still a certified prosthetist. So I went and did all of uh, the exams and paid all the fees and all the things and get to keep up with all of that really fun stuff. But I pivoted into the nonprofit space and truly in the broad disability advocacy world. Through that, I was one of many founders on a support group for people with limb loss and limb difference out in Colorado. I was a peer visitor through Amputee Coalition and had kind of always been adjacent to the organization. It wasn't until just 3 years ago, I just celebrated my 3-year anniversary last month, that I was talking about advocacy and really using examples from work that I was doing in Florida. And someone from the Amputee Coalition was like, oh my gosh, you should come and talk about advocacy in our space. Like maybe we can work together in some way. A week later, she calls back and she's like, oh, I have a position. Don't you want to come work here? Like you would be great. And it was a government relations role. So director of government relations for Amputee Coalition, so big national nonprofit. This was like a Washington, D.C. kind of gig. Here I was like in just the like, let's talk about disability to anyone who doesn't know. And I thought, well, that could be really cool. I could learn, really polish some skills. I had been doing some advocacy work with the Florida legislature. So I had gotten additional money for the program I was working with at the time. And I jumped right into it. But I came with kind of the outside lens of Amputee Coalition can be so much more, can really be like the whole piece of the puzzle for someone, not just where their prosthesis fits into their life. So I brought a little bit of a critical lens and have never looked back, honestly. So from government relations director now to operations director, getting to help the team to be efficient and try to really scale our programming in a way. I mean, our organization's been around for 40 years. So I'm thinking, what does the next 40 look like? And how can we make sure that the updates in technology keep up with where we need to go and how our community members can best be served?
I love it. We're going to be unpacking a lot about the organization, obviously, but I could just like hear there's like so many elements that are within APT Coalition that your background, I feel like, has like so specifically prepared you for your role. So I think that's awesome to hear.
Mhm. Mhm.
So let's kind of dive into a little bit more about the organization as a whole. So APT Coalition, you just said it's celebrating its 40th year. Super exciting. What kind of talk about like what is kind of the overview of what it provides and what it does.
Absolutely. So you said it in your opening, we empower people who are impacted by limb loss and limb difference. So that could be the human themselves, but it could also be their family members, their caregivers, anyone in their medical or professional network, really, anyone that feels like limb loss and limb difference is important to their day to day. And we do that through education, support, and advocacy. The education piece really is through our events. So, our national conference, we just had our conference in January of this year, and we're hoping the next one is going to be in early 2027. We haven't released the info on that, so stay tuned for that soon. But our national conference is really a keystone event for us where people can be with their peers, but also get those educational components, which include peer support or even adaptive clinics of learning how to fall, which is, I know, a big space for you all in the physical therapy community, or practicing their gait, trying a new sport, or we even had an art clinic this year, which was really exciting. So just finding ways to bring people together. So that's kind of the education piece. As far as support, we have our peer support network, which is really pivotal. And I think we're going to really dive into that on this conversation. But training individuals to know how to go into a hospital room and talk to someone who's just had an amputation. These are folks that have had amputations or born with limb difference themselves or a member of their family, to just be able to give their personal experience, but also lead them in a direction that isn't a particular manufacturer or a particular clinic or a particular, some sort of biased input there. We also have a support group network where we help people start support groups, which is really exciting. And that can be anyone that wants to start a support group in their local area. We have resources to help them keep that going and get plugged in with any news coming out of our space so they can always have something to talk about within their network. We also do information and referral, which is, you call us, you have a question, anything regarding limb loss and limb difference. And if we don't have the answer, we point you in the direction of the community or the partner organization, the resource that does have the answer. We also do healthcare navigation, which if your insurance company denies you a prosthesis or a wheelchair, or you find yourself in a skilled nursing facility and you don't know why, you can call us and we can kind of talk you through that and actually help you with appeals to your insurance company. That's kind of one of those like gems of a resource that we have that I don't think is well known. Wendy on our team fields those calls and she's absolutely phenomenal. And then we do, gosh, what else do we do? I think that's all of the support stuff. And then the advocacy piece, we truly try to be the group that is fighting for limb loss and limb difference, whether that be through policy or breaking down barriers and different systems that you don't even know exist until you get into the space. So we partner with a lot of national nonprofits in Washington, D.C., and then we partner with state organizations as well. And we have this really fun and exciting grassroots advocacy program now, so everybody can move, that's helping to expand access in each state for medically necessary orthotics, prosthetics, and in some states, wheelchairs that is more than just your day-to-day use. So whether that's recreation, whether that's something for showering or bathing, whether that's for, I mean, gosh, sky's the limits. Whatever your medical provider thinks that you need a prosthesis for to do the things, we want you to be able to do that. So that's through our grassroots campaign so everybody can move.
That is a lot of stuff.
I know. And I'm sure I'm leaving stuff out, to be honest. There's so many things.
Yeah, I'm impressed you got through all that. I'm just curious from a logistics standpoint, that sounds like you need an army for that. How do you This is probably a broad question, but like, I guess we could have a short answer to this one. How do you all support that kind of work? What kind of support do you all receive to make that happen?
So I'm so glad you asked. We have a very incredible network of volunteers. So we have about 1,200 volunteers that are our core
Wow.
volunteers. They're the ones doing that peer visitor work, or they're running support groups, or they're part of that So Everybody Can Move network, actually being the boots on the ground in those state capitals. And they're really the lifeblood of what we do. We couldn't do it without them. We're making sure that they have the training so that they feel like they're the professionals to go in and talk about their own experience, but also give that support to others. So we also have more on the professional side of things. We have a incredible group called our Scientific and Medical Advisory Committee, which is made up of PTs, OTs, nurses, physicians that come and kind of help us make sure that the resources that we're putting out are medically sound and really follow evidence-based practices and are being updated on a regular basis. So if we put something out, we know that it's been vetted by people who are out in the field doing the work every single day. So that's another part of our volunteer space that is a little bit higher up than just, anyone can join.
I'm curious as far as like publications. I know there's a number of publications that are put out through Amputee Coalition. Kind of share a little bit about those things that are, I guess, kind of accessible for people who are living with limb loss, limb difference, or maybe even like in the professional kind of community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I made sure that I kind of pulled up our list so I'd be able to reference things to make sure I didn't. I mean, there's too many things to go through in real time, but we divide up our resources in three different categories. We have guides, which are really like the lengthy in the meat, what does the day to day of a new experience look like? Then we have our publications that are a little bit, I'm going to say lighter, but they're still extensive resources. And then we have our fact sheets. So for our guides, we have our first step journey, which is when someone's having an amputation. This is from post op all the way to the end of their second year. So, kind of what does that transition look like? We just updated this guide. It's about 200 pages. It and all of these are digital, so you can get in there. You can Control F and find those resources. You don't have to necessarily read it cover to cover, but it's thick. So we have that online. We also have the Beginning Your New Journey guides, which also goes by your level that you've had an amputation. So we have one for above knee, below knee, hemipelvectomy with hip disarticulation, an upper limb guide, as well as a wrist disarticulation guide. So we try to cover the gamut, or at least the big buckets there on levels of amputation. And this just dives in a little bit deeper to what someone can likely experience when they're going through that amputation. And since these are digital, someone can read this if they are knowing an amputation is coming. So they can kind of have, honestly, I say just the words, because sometimes, prosthesis or prosthetic limb, these are hard to pronounce. And, maybe you've never even heard it because you've never met anyone who's used these things, or maybe using a prosthesis isn't right for you, but you still want to try to understand what to expect after amputation. So those are our guides. We also have one for being a caregiver. So beginning your new journey as a caregiver. And that's a great resource for someone in the family or a friend who has someone that's going through amputation. So we try to make sure that it's not just the person, but their immediate support network there has resources. And then for our publications, like I said, they're a little bit smaller than our guides. These include things like care of wounds after amputation surgery, successful outcomes with a patient and prosthetist, kind of navigating that relationship. We also have one on physical therapy and one on occupational therapy. So, specific to those experiences as you're going through. So, these are all of our publications are in English and in Spanish. Not all of our guides are in Spanish, but we're working on that. And hopefully, we'll have some other languages in the coming years. And then Fact sheets are like web pages on our website. So those aren't printed or haven't been printed, but they range from, you know, what the words are, like prosthesis versus prosthetic versus prostheses, and kind of how to pronounce those. Also, to what does emotional recovery look like, and how to navigate that piece. But also employment, transportation, financial resources. We get that call all the time of, my copay is high or my out of pocket is high. I want to get this device, but I can't afford the device because of these reasons. And so we have a list of the different groups that we know of that help people with financial needs. So those live on the website. All of this lives on the website. But that's kind of where we can really show up for people at that 2:00 in the morning when they need a resource, and no one's answering a phone call, but it's there for you out on the World Wide Web.
Is this what you would, or is like part of that, like what you would call like the National Limb Loss Resource Center? Is that
Yes.
where that
Yes,
term comes from?
absolutely. So that's the big pie on kind of the electronic or digital resources. We also are about to have all of these printed again. We had them printed previously, and we're finding that just with updates and whatnot, we kind of needed to do a big refresher. So we got our quote from the printer literally this morning. So I'm hoping that in May, you all will get a big announcement from us that these resources are available via print and you can order them. They will have a cost to order them just to cover printing and whatnot. But if you're an individual who has limb loss or limb difference, they would be free. So if you need to request a print resource, because we know not everybody navigates the digital world as easily and wants to be able to feel something in their hand. So we have that as an option coming, hopefully very, very soon.
I love that you've kind of talked about these different areas. I'm going to kind of dive a little bit back into some of the stuff that we were talking about, but like, I mean, for example, like upper limb is like such unrepresented in terms of resources. We see that a lot in physical therapy, that there's, if you go to a national conference, if you have even one session on upper limb, that would be surprising. Um, so that's fantastic that there's resources to that. I think especially also in terms of like supporting caregivers too.
Mhm.
I got to be kind of an integral part of an event some years ago, and we had kind of like breakout support groups for kind of different people, similar to kind of how we are talking of, you know, life experience or level of amputation. And then for caregivers that were in attendance, we kind of shoved them in a room and let them have an
Mm.
opportunity. And that was a really impactful thing. And the what we heard from that was so astounding. So I think that's a huge, I think, population that is certainly underserved. And I love hearing that y'all have resources for that, and being able to kind of get in that realm too. Um, I I want to dive into the peer support program a little bit more. This is one that I've very thankfully had a lot of my patients do. Some who are certified peer visitors through Amputee Coalition, and I've had so many patients who've been on the receiving end of it too. Um, let's kind of break it down to say, like, what does it take to become a certified peer visitor through Amputee Coalition?
I'm so glad you want to dive into this because this is like a phenomenal program that we offer that's at no cost to clinicians, but also the individuals going through the program.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, so good. So to become a certified peer visitor, you do need to be a year out from your amputation. That's really our biggest thing because we want to make sure you have gone through your own process and can really provide that support to others. We also you need to be over 18. We are trying to bring back our family and youth peer visitor program, but we're not quite there yet. And then we are looking for people that don't work for an OMP clinic or a manufacturer or are in sales, because we know that can be a really hard line, especially when people love the products that they wear or love the clinicians that they work with, and we don't want anyone to feel biased because they're also getting a paycheck from that group. So unfortunately at this time those folks aren't eligible to become certified peer visitors. But really, the big thing is being a year out from your amputation. And of course, if you were born with limb difference, you qualify. You don't have to worry about that piece. With that, there's an application on our website, so anyone can go in and apply to become a certified peer visitor. You do go through an 8-hour training. Now, this is all online right now. We actually do it through Zoom. So you kind of get added in with a cohort where you're going through. We do it in 2 4-hour sessions, so you don't have to sit in front of a computer for 8 hours all at once. We have trainers, so our certified peer visitor trainers, which are absolutely tremendous humans that come in and train others to become certified peer visitors. So they do that work for us. Another one of those volunteer categories that I don't think I mentioned earlier, but they're training upwards of 10 people in a session, and we try to provide 1 to 2 sessions every month. So there's always an opportunity to become a certified peer visitor. Or if folks are associated with the VA also has these training programs. So there are certified peer visitor trainers through the VA. That's a partnership we have through them, through the Amputation Systems of Care. So they have our materials as well to be able to provide that level through their system. So once you go through the training, you do, of course, have to be approved by the trainer saying you know your stuff and you're in a good space to be able to move forward. And then we put you in our vast network. So whenever someone requests a peer visit, which could be the physical therapist, they can go on our website and request a peer visit on behalf of someone that they're serving. It could also be the individual. So both options are really helpful.
Okay, that's good. I actually didn't know about the therapist or provider could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. When you go to request a peer visit, that's the first question if you're requesting it for yourself or for someone else. So even a caregiver can request it for an individual if they'd like, which we found, not everyone's in the headspace or even have access to technology if they're still in the hospital to be able to fill out that form. You also, of course, can request a peer visit before you've had your amputation. If you know an amputation is upcoming, we're happy to connect you with individuals. And because we get to live in this virtual world now, you can be connected with someone who has a similar experience as you on the phone, right? We aren't always able to get someone in person to walk into the hospital room. However, that's a great plug for physical therapists who are seeing a lot of people who've had amputations or who have limb difference. If they can help us to build those certified peer visitors in their network or start a support group, then we would be able to have people come in that are local and actually be there in the rooms with people. But we connect people all across the country for these peer visits. And then we ask that they report back to us just to let us know how many peer visits they've done. This is all part of our federal programming through HHS. So we want to make sure we can tell them that our, really impactful volunteers did this many visits and, what the outcomes of those were. So that's kind of like the continuum of if you want to become a peer visitor and how to do it. And then, of course, how to plug yourselves in as clinicians and try to get more support in your local area.
Yeah, I think getting somebody set up in peer visiting. I mean, I can't even begin to talk about the impact that it's had on my patients and kind of before and after, and even just like I kind of joke with my patients that sometimes it's just a good time to be able to chat with somebody and just say that some things kind of suck. And that
Absolutely.
resonates with them so well, and they've had some really good opportunities to chat with. And sometimes that I've noticed that those are sometimes one-time visits, sometimes they are partnerships that last for years.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like, certainly there's a section of being able to refer to peer visitors. I know that this exists. I'll kind of let you talk about how the mechanics of it. But let's say you are like new to Amputee Coalition, have a new limb loss, what does that first step look like in terms of getting connected, in terms of like navigating the site? Is there a spot for them to first go to?
Well, I hope this is as easy as it sounds, but on our homepage in the top right corner, there's a Join the Amputee Coalition button. So that really is our kind of front door to get you on our email list, to really start showing you all of the different ways that we can connect you. Um, Through doing that, you'll hear about upcoming certified peer visitor trainings. You'll hear about opportunities to participate in research. We have a rich community where researchers are sending us ways that people can get involved in studies that they're doing. So that's part of our website under our volunteer research opportunities. So those get highlighted in our newsletters. And then, of course, they'll know when events are happening, whether that be national conference or our youth camp that we do every year, or if we're able to do something in their community or a local event is coming up that we know about, that can all come through that newsletter. So it comes out weekly. So you'll never miss an update as soon as you join the Amputee Coalition. And then, of course, we're on all the social media things as well. So you can follow along with us on social media and engage with us that way.
Very cool. I also did not know about the research aspect, about how that could be a good connection. I
Yeah.
I field a lot of those questions sometimes of, "Oh, hey, can you share this research study with, you know, XYZ support group," whatever. So I think that's a really good way to kind of make that connection too.
Oh, yeah. Point them to us. Absolutely. We have a
Sounds
whole,
good.
they can fill out the form on our website and then we'll look at their research and then go and promote it for them.
Oh yeah, super great. All right, I would kind of go, yeah, I guess like a deeper in a way of in terms of kind of connecting people within like a greater community. What are some of the things like from your perspective as someone who is navigating this each and every day? Some of the challenges that you all have seen that are facing that, um, perhaps like a physical therapist or another practitioner in a region could support people through? You know, that's a long-winded question.
Well, I kind of say with a little tongue in cheek that sometimes disability resources are like the best kept secrets, and that's not how we ever want it to be. But certainly being able to know that they can plug people in, even if they're living in rural communities or, in a space where maybe they don't have the internet, but they still have a phone and they can connect to folks. People can call us and request those peer visits. We can still connect them that way. They don't have to have the internet, which seems wild to think, but that's still a thing, right? And we serve folks of all ages as well. So of course, older Americans might not navigate things easily also. So I think for folks in the physical therapy space, just trying to pull in that peer network, right? Because unless they are a peer themselves, it's kind of hard to really know the full spectrum and all of the things. And you all do such a wonderful job in the rehabilitation space and helping people work towards their goals. But there's always just that other thing that they don't think of when they're with you, that they, like you said, things might suck and they don't know how to say it, or even what the thought is, but they know there's something that's frustrating and they maybe don't want to talk to a healthcare provider about it. And having support groups or a peer to be able to have those conversations, or even just seeing one of our reels on social media that someone's saying the words that they didn't realize. There have been so many conversations that I have been in where people are like, we just didn't know the thing until we saw it. And then once we saw it, it all made sense to us. So I hate to have people in the medical space feel like so much is on their shoulders. So we want to be a partner in that space to be able to connect people into a network to really feel that, I don't know, that whole system, the continuum of care, the whole person, and make sure they feel the support.
Yeah, and as a clinician, love hearing like that continuum of care. I mean, that's a common theme of what we talk about on this podcast. So, absolutely. I'm wondering, are there any kind of like, as you all are fielding phone calls, um, are there common kind of requests or common concerns that people bring to you all, or maybe even to peer visitors? Like, and I think knowing some of these things, because certainly, in terms of like being in the clinic, you're with people for many hours, and we
Mhm.
we hear a lot about what
Mhm.
people are going through. So I'm just, yeah, like, just kind of wondering, are there things that when we hear might cue, oh, you know what, there's some great things through Amputee Coalition that I could send you to. Kind of beyond, I mean, just even beyond like peer visiting, but like, some things that's like really some things that you all hear a lot, I guess.
Well, certainly the financial piece is something we get a lot of calls about, just trying to navigate how to get access to a device or to pay for that device. So knowing that there are nonprofits or foundations out there that have supports for those. Also, being able to donate their device when they're done with it, if they get a new prosthesis or something and they want to, theirs is still in good shape, and donate it. There are other groups, not us, but we can connect you with other groups that you can donate that stuff to. Also, programs where you can, order one shoe or donate the other shoe if you are not using a prosthesis and have one foot. Those are kind of some of the calls that I feel like we're getting on a regular basis, but we also, people are getting denied devices all the time, or even feeling like a device doesn't need to be their end all be all, right? They might navigate things not through a prosthesis, or through a wheelchair or through crutches, cane, walker, whatever the gamut is. And even though I think we feature a lot of folks that are using prostheses, that's not the answer for everyone. So really knowing that there's a wide range of how we navigate limb loss and limb difference, and maybe they find that through peer support or maybe just through conversations, to know that it may be a goal that they don't have to break their back, for lack of a better term, to get to it, because we can all be who we are as humans, however we show up, and whatever those goals we're working towards.
I had a few colleagues that went to you all's conference this year, and got to see a little bit of just like the people that were there, how they were navigating, and all. Honestly, the resources and supports that make that conference happen. I think there's that could be a whole probably
Yeah.
podcast unto itself.
Uh-huh.
I learned so much about that what was going on through her and how she talked about that. So, but anyways, conversation for another time. Maybe another one we'll go for. But yeah, we talked a little bit about how there are resources for people in different stages of recovery, kind of different parts of life, different levels. I want to talk a little bit about youth kind of services. Kind of get a little bit more into that. Obviously, that's a really complex, situation for a multitude of reasons. But what kind of things do you have that kind of cater more towards a youth population?
So our youth camp, which is our Patty Rossback Youth Camp, happens every summer. This year it's the last week of July in Rockport, Texas. Applications are open now. We're taking young people 10 through 17, and if they want to be a leader in training, 18 and 19, and if they're over 20, they can come be a camp counselor. So that really is probably our most exciting space for young people to get in and be with their peers and go and do fun things like canoeing and fishing and all sorts of just go be a kid in the outdoors. So that's a really great program we have. We also are looking to kind of revisit that youth and family certified peer visitor that I mentioned before. And actually, one of our physical therapist partners, Dr. Colleen Coulter, has been one that created that back in the day and is helping us to bring that back to light so that we can provide that space as well. We also are working on that beginning your new journey guide kind of series that I referenced. We're in the works on trying to get one for the pediatric space. Honestly, there's so much more we can be doing in youth, but these are like there's always more we can be doing in all of the things, right? But we're finding from like the peer support through our youth camp. We have a young adult support group. Those are folks over 18, but it feels like we're getting younger every day. So we bring together people that way, and that's a virtual support group that happens every month online. That information's on our website as well for young adults to come and get together.
For anyone who did not see the video portion of this recording, If you could have seen the look of Whitney's face as she was describing the camp, it was just like it must be some magic going on there because it was a very positive thing. Um, yeah, it's so really neat to kind of hear you also talk about how physical therapists or clinicians could be involved. And that would kind of leads into another question I have is, obviously there's so many things, for people who live with limb loss, limb difference, there's so many opportunities that they have to get connected, to be involved, to be peer mentors. But like, let's say if you're a clinician, you're like, wow, this is super exciting. I absolutely love this. I want to help. What do they do?
Absolutely. So, helping us to get volunteers through those certified peer visitors in their community is huge because that impact can be, exponentially expanded on starting a support group in their city. If there isn't a support group, if there is, helping to make sure that that carries on. We have a number of physical therapists that are running support groups out of their clinic. We also have opportunities. We've mentioned national conference a few times. We're always looking for volunteers to come and run that. Dr. Carol Miller runs our gate clinic at our national conference every year, and that's usually a big draw for our community. There's never enough signups for people to go in and watch them walk, right? Which is so silly, but also so great to come and strut your stuff and get input on how to do it better. So that's another way. I mentioned that scientific and medical advisory committee. It doesn't have openings at the moment, but there come times when we're looking for new people to join that group. So that's an opportunity as well.
No, all absolutely great. Yeah. And I think, when you talk about like having opportunity for people to have an opportunity like at the conference to be able to be seen. That's one of the things that you know, myself and a number of folks who I've had the great opportunity to interview are passionate about trying to improve access to, even getting into the virtual spaces as you all are so heavily profound in. So, yeah, I think there's so many great opportunities and great openings in that kind of space. My final question for you. This is where I always kind of like to bring things back to uh, the people, really. And do you have kind of really a story or a particular person that sticks out in your mind, that really kind of, I don't know, embodies the impact that the amputee coalition can have on somebody?
I have thought
Probably hard
long
to
and
pick.
hard because it's like everybody I talk to, right,
Yeah,
has
of
this
course.
story. I have a story too of how I've come to Amputee Coalition, but I'm going to give an example of one of our youth camp counselors who was
Mm.
a youth camper and hadn't been in that space of being around other folks that have limb loss or limb difference as a young person. He was 16 when he came in. His disabilities, he has other disabilities, and they kind of got more complicated. And he was hesitant to come back because he felt like he was a different version of himself than he was when he got to be young and free and amongst his peers. And just last year, we were able to bring him back. He had all of the issues you don't want to have at the airport, right? Between TSA or just navigating and getting a wheelchair access and help in that space. And ended up being a very stressful time where he didn't think he was going to be able to come because it was just kind of too much. And through the friends that he had made that were also coming back as camp counselors, they were able to help him rally. Once he got on site, it was like coming home for him, and he really was able to blossom. We were able to get him to national conference, and he spoke on stage to the broad audience about, just what it felt like to be able to come back and as an adult who, again, had different disabilities than when he came as a young person, and feeling just that level of peer support. And our current version of In Motion magazine, our spring 2026, has a featured article of him. Isaiah is his name, so please go check that one out. But he's a great example of kind of what we hope to help people feel is the love and being the best version of themselves, but also being able to give back through that volunteerism and just all that wonderful stuff.
A full continuum, a full circle moment in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's awesome. Well, as always, we'll have kind of resources in the show notes. So we'll put the Amputee Coalition website, amputee-coalition.org. I think I got that right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we'll have that on there. But Whitney Doyle, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Will.